the first breakfast series in the 2026 program for the year, Fueling Idaho's Future, Statewide Economic Development. And we are so glad that you chose to start your day with us this morning. Idaho Business Review editor Mark Lutz has lined up an excellent panel for today's discussion, and you will be introduced to them momentarily. But first, the breakfast series would not be possible without the support of our 2026 program sponsors. Holly Troxel is our presenting sponsor for the breakfast series for 2026. Holly Troxel is Idaho and the Inland Northwest premier business and litigation law firm. Let's thank them for their support. I'd also like to thank our supporting sponsors, Bank of America and the Grove Hotel. Thank you for your continued support. And some of you might be new into the hotel this year. Late last year, the Grove Hotel underwent a renovation. If you've not been into the hotel in some time, feel free to check it out. Vicki Carley is here. She would be happy to assist you with any meetings for the year, business meetings, business luncheons, happy hours, or a tour of the guest rooms. They're beautiful. Plan a staycation if you haven't done that before. So thank you. Before I turn it over to our moderator, I want to inform you that today's event is being recorded by videographer Mike DiDonato. Mike is with the Better Business Bureau, and we are grateful to have their support. Thank you for being here, Mike. Tom Mortel will be our moderator this morning. Tom is co-managing partner for Holly Troxel. And he'll be moderating today's discussion, as I'd mentioned. And I'd like to welcome Tom to the podium now so he can introduce you to this morning's panelists. Thank you so much.
Great to be here with you today, and I appreciate the opportunity to be the moderator for this panel. I'm Tom Mortel. I'm a healthcare attorney with Holly Troxel. I serve as co-managing partner of Holly Troxel, and I've until January spent the last 2 years as the board chair for Boise Valley Economic Partnership. So I've been on that board for a number of years and have learned a lot about economic development and come to appreciate the effort that goes in to growing our communities through those efforts. So it's my pleasure to be here with you today. I'm going to start with Jan and ask you to just each introduce yourself briefly. We'll start on my immediate right with Jan, and then go to Clark and Mel, and then Dodd, who's appearing from Lewiston via Zoom. So give us a great introduction.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jen Rogers, and I want to just get this out of the way up front. I represent Southern Idaho Economic Development by way of Texas. So when you hear my accent, that's where it's from. Anyway, we're very excited to be here, and I'm really honored. Our organization will be celebrating its 25th anniversary, if you can believe that, June 1st of this year. So from 2001 to 2026, we've had quite a record run in Southern Idaho. So I'm excited to share some of that with you.
Clark.
I don't have an accent, but so I'm not as cool as Jan, but yeah.
Came to us from Utah, if I remember.
And Tom has to listen to me again. Thank you, Tom, for all you've done for Boise Valley Economic Partnership and many other organizations that you've helped with. I really appreciate it. I have a lot of board members out there from Boise Valley Economic Partnership, so I'll try to behave myself. I have been in economic development for the last 27 years, starting in Cedar City, Utah. I was there for 5 years, and then I worked for New Mexico, running their state organization that does economic development recruitment for about 7 years, and then I've been in Boise for 15 years, and I couldn't think of a better place that you wake up every morning and figure out what's special about your community. And Boise's got so much of that in this metro. And then I get to go out and sell it to the country and the globe. So it's a great job. I can't imagine another career that would have given me what this place has given me and the community as well. So
Thank you, Mel.
Yeah, so Mel Jackson, and I just wanted to echo what the other panelists are saying. It's great to be here. Thanks to Mark and Cindy and the team for putting this together. It's great to be back in Boise, my home for 21 years, until December of 25. I've been already called the new guy about 20 times this morning with some of you, and it is true. I'm taking over for a gentleman named Harry Griffith, who founded our organization's Sun Valley Economic Development 15 years ago. So I've been drinking from the fire hose the last couple of months, but I'm still looking forward to uh, letting you all know what are some of our opportunities and challenges that we're facing over in Blaine County. So it's a thrill to be here. Thanks, Tom.
Great. Dodd.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I can't be with you today. I'm up in Lewiston, but I'm Dodd Snodgrass, Executive Director for the Clearwater Economic Development Association. We're a regional planning district, and we represent 5 north central Idaho counties. And our mission is very simple. We assist business and communities by serving as a conduit for resources. And we're involved in community development, business development, economic development. I've been in the business for, 40 years or so. I moved to Idaho when I was 3. I've worked in other areas of Reporter District in Washington State. I worked for Idaho Power for a short time in the early 90s, and mainly I've been in the economic development sphere. So I appreciate being involved and invited to be here and provide a kind of an outside perspective from this part of the state.
Excellent. Thank you all. Let's start with Jan. Could you tell us some of the main industries in your region and how do those help or slow down your economic development? You've had great success. We've all watched the Magic Valley in the last, especially the last 10 or 12 years. Tell us about your area.
Well, as you all know, we are all things food. I mean, we are the most diverse food basket in America. We not only grow, but we process and we do a lot of research. So it's just across the board. So that's what's kind of exciting. I mean, we're not just a kind of a one-man band. When the milk, now that we're number 3 in milk, when milk started coming into the valley 10 or 15 years ago, it was a game changer because when milk was good and the crops were not, it sort of leveled out the economy and vice versa. And so that really did help. But understand, because of the breadth and depth that we have in the food industry, we also have the support industry to support that. But a little side note you might not know, we have a small cluster in the plastics industry as well. We have Dart Foods, Dart, which makes the straws. We have a Fabrical, which is now Pactive Green, that actually relocated here as the sole source to the Chobani cups that the yogurt goes in. So we've got Hilux Poly and a new pipe company, Pipeline Package, Pipeline Plastics, just opened their doors this past year in Rupert, Idaho. And that project went from dirt to producing pipe in 10 months. So it was kind of the same story on a smaller scale as Chobani, that went from dirt to processing yogurt in 326 days. So, that's really what we have. That's what we have to sell. And we're still on a roll. I'll have to share some of those numbers with you later.
Thank you, Clark. What are some of the main industries that you're finding are attracted to the Treasure Valley, and how do you determine or judge how they'll be a good fit in this valley?
Great question. I think we're from microchips to potato chips, right? And anything in between. I know that we have a slide when clients come here that says it's not about the potato, it's what we did with the potato. And I think that really capsulizes Idaho in general. You know, it's about the milk, but it's also being able to attract the Chobani to take advantage of that milk. And I think Boise has had several of those wins as well. You know, this was a place that at one time, when it was less than half the size it is today, had 7 Fortune 500 companies here. Today, you have about 4 of those that you still have existing here in one form or another. So, you know, across the whole country, you'd be hard pressed to find another metro of this size or any size that has that much headquarters that was established here. And so our history kind of drives our present and our future. So we look for food, we look for technology because of Micron. Because of Micron, we're looking at, there are 200 companies, suppliers and vendors that they need to have either here or at least in the region. And by region, I mean from Phoenix to Seattle, but we need to get them onshore so that they can serve Micron better. And they need to be here, and they also need to be in New York. And so we're also working with New York to make sure that we create this supply chain that's going to be so needed for this $50 billion investment that's coming to Boise. But with that being said, I would also say warehouse distribution, food processing, food technology, other technologies in manufacturing are all things that we're looking at. We had a huge amount of office that was coming in. Over 50% of what we're seeing from a customer base used to be office out of Seattle and Washington, or excuse me, in San Francisco. And as you know, that kind of dried up. So we had one win last year that was office, which was wire router, kind of your wireless modems, and that was called Eros, and we brought them in to the downtown. But the market's changing, so we're seeing a lot of manufacturing and food.
Great, thanks. Mel, tell us what kind of partnerships you're developing around the state to help grow the workforce and the other key areas of economic development in the Sun Valley area.
Sure. I can answer that with some direct partnerships, and then there's some indirect ones as well. I would say most directly would be in the area of vocational training. So what I've really been pushing for in my first couple of months is getting out there and meeting some of the educators in the area. So in particular, College of Southern Idaho, down in Twin Falls, as well as Boise State here. There's all kinds of programs from resort and hospitality management to the construction trades. And what we try to do is we listen to the employers in the area, and we try to find out, what are your current needs, and then can you think a few years into the future, what are you anticipating your needs will be? And then we worked with our educators to figure out, okay, can we set up a pre-apprenticeship program? For example, we've got one in its 3rd year that we set up with Sun Valley Company around mountain operations, and we're putting kids through boot camps, and they're learning how to do everything. They get there's about 7 or 8 different courses that they go through, from mountain safety to lift ticket operations to grooming operations, and they're getting a feel for what that could potentially look like as a career. Sun Valley Culinary Institute is a great example of a 4 or 5-year-old institution that came out of wanting to train future chefs, and has been a huge success there. So those partnerships, as well as on the indirect side, I would just say, especially for a new person, I'm getting to know my friends at Commerce, my friends at Boise Valley Chamber, AIDA, because there are a lot of things, programs, grant opportunities out there, but sometimes you need to go find them. They don't just show up on their own. So I'm trying to cast a very wide net in my early days.
Mel, I'm quite confident that I'm going to need your help to get into the Sun Valley Culinary Institute when I'm done with the current gig I'm working with. So Dodd, tell us about the Clearwater Economic Development, your work in business retention and growth and community growth, aside really from your economic development efforts, or a part of your economic development efforts.
Sure. So yeah, our mission is a bit different, say Ken and Clark's, because we're not involved in the recruitment area. We can kind of think of it as setting the table before you serve dinner. So we're largely in the community development realm. A lot of this grant work and infrastructure work. So we support water, wastewater, senior centers. We're doing a lot in broadband. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Um, because we have a very broad, diverse area. So we have some challenges too, because we're the one area in the state doesn't have a freeway, and it's been a vexing issue for a long time. We probably see more economic growth and population growth if our transportation corridors were a little more advanced. We're very fortunate to get two airports in Lewiston and also in the Pullman Moscow, which has grown quite a bit. If you've flown through there, there's a lot going on. So our job growth, our population growth compared to the hot spots of the state has always been a little bit behind. But for those of you who've been up here, of course, we're the home of the Vandals, the University of Idaho. And we have a tremendous educational resource in our region. So we're neighboring Washington State, obviously. So between Washington State University, University of Idaho, Lewis Clark State College, the Walla Walla Community College, that's an epicenter for educational resources. So really fortunate in that area. And one of the creations out of that education network is Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories, based in Pullman, that they have a plant in Lewiston and also Moscow. They're the largest private sector employer in our region, like 3,000 jobs. And they, how like a lot of businesses and industry, partnership and economic development, they don't quite do it that way. But on their own, the owner and the company invest a lot in programs and things that they're passionate about. For example, we have the Schweitzer Technology Center on the campus of Lewis Clark State College, which is the CTE program. And we were involved in funding for equipment in that center. So that's a huge benefit for CTE training. And CTE workforce development is very hot in our area. We have a lot of assets. We're working on, building out. We like the fact that we are pristine. We're 2/3 national forests, right? You've been up here in Idaho County, Clearwater, Selway, Waxhaw, beautiful, beautiful for tourism. We have a lot of tourism activity. So I like to think we have a lot of diversity, a lot of opportunity. It's quiet living, but we don't have either the challenges or benefits you might see in a growth area like Treasure Valley.
Thank you. Let's go to a question for each of the panelists, and we'll start with Dot and then work our way back in the other direction. This isn't on our script, but we talked about it last week.
Uh-oh.
In one of my other community service areas, I monitor legislation on behalf of the Boise Metro Chamber, chair of the Chamber's Policy Committee. And for years, and I also participate in Idaho Business for Education. For years, the nexus between education, K-12, CTE, and trade schools and higher education has been crucial in my mind to economic development. As we've grown, we have lots of industries who don't have the skilled workforce they need. So let's talk about some of the issues that your groups face and the companies that you're recruiting here may face in addressing those workforce issues. In particular, I'm interested in your thoughts on the governor's launch program and on the current state of some of the budget cuts that we're seeing proposed, that until recently were going to hold education harmless, and now it's not so clear, and now CTE is not so clear that it's going to be protected from what I'm calling revenue shortfalls, not budget shortfalls, but things that have been caused by excessive tax cuts. So Dodd, give us an idea of what those programs have meant to your area.
Well, I don't know exact figures on launch. File makers and very, very successful. I can say that University of Idaho and Lewis Clark State College got record enrollment, and I'm pretty sure that North Idaho College has done very well too. So that's a great program. The objective is and this is our mission in our region with our young people, because like our demographics are getting older, except for the Moscow area. We're losing our young people. I mean, they go to school here or to leave the region for other opportunities, and that's okay. We want them to come back. So we do focus a lot on workforce training support. I work closely with workforce training, the workforce training program at West Park State College. We do outreach with area businesses. And again, I think it's most important when you look at economic development services, recruitment is great, takes a lot of resources, there's a lot of people chasing deals, but your bread and butter, the most important people you're looking out for are your existing businesses. And I think Cass will all agree on that. So we're checking in with them. What are your workforce pinch points? We have support from the Workforce Development Council. If you, hopefully WCDC Frank's there in the audience, what a great agency they are, because they do direct grant support to the colleges for training programs for industry. They're a great economic development tool for companies coming here. And hopefully they have their direct funding source, so they're able to keep doing what they're doing. But in the general fund area, like CT, Department of Education, I think that's draconian. And across the board, Republican, Democrat, everybody says workforce development, career-centered training and programs like HVAC, electricians, plumbers. We need those folks. They're paid well. And as people age out and retire, we don't have a pipeline of people to step in and do that. So critically important. And we have the workforce program that we do directly with youth, and it's really a focus and passion of ours.
Great. Mel, tell us about that in your area.
Okay, so obviously, like probably many of you in the room here, I mean, the launch program is awesome, and hopefully that can continue in some shape or form going forward. The one thing I would say is that we don't have a lot of control over what ultimately comes out of the legislature. I think people are sort of bracing, but it's still kind of an unknown, as I believe it is every year. So that means we may have to take things, we basically need to take things into our own hands. So one of the other meetings I'm really looking forward to during my time here is with the new president of the Idaho Workforce Development Council, and to find out what other kinds of grants or funding could be out there for programs leading directly to economic development. And I alluded to some of those earlier as well. But other examples might be, for example, we have a huge need for English as a second language training. And so what kind of programs can we set up in that area? That speaks directly to, workforce mobility, elevating within the workforce, and it's critical, and we don't have it right now. So, sometimes we're just going to have to think outside the box, work with some of our educators. We can't rely on the funding always being there from the legislature, but there are still other things we can do within our sphere. We're very blessed to have a pretty awesome but benevolent community up in the Sun Valley area as well. And so kind of tapping into that public-private partnership, NGO relationships, NFP relationships, I believe we can get some things done that we need.
Clark. 10 year, I guess it was about 10 years ago, Brookings Institute came into this market and working with the city of Boise. And they studied our workforce and where we were at, like what was the condition of our workforce? Did we have enough workforce? All of those things. And when they came to give us that survey and report, and they said, if things don't change, you will run out of workforce, skilled workforce in this community and in this state. And part of that was, to me, I knew that already because we were creating more jobs than population. That was true back then. It's still true today. This market is creating more jobs than population growth. So with that being said, I think you are at a crossroads. We are at a crossroads in the state of Idaho I was so pleased, and I think we all were pleased, when the governor emphasized, and I want to thank him for this, how important education was, and that we needed to not just have a good, K through 12, but that we really needed to make sure that the kids that were graduating from our high schools and that were moving on had an opportunity to do something. And so launch to me is your sea change. Launch, not just in Idaho, but in this country, is one of the best programs you could ask for this state. We need to make sure that and support that the governor can stay whole with that program. The grants and other things are really, really important as well. I don't know as much about them as Launch. I have a board that tells me, unless I give you an anonymous decision to make a public statement about policy, don't do it. And, Launch has never been one that we weren't able to speak up on. And we've been trying to tell this community, as well as the state of Idaho and the legislators, this is it. This is your sea change. This will make Idaho better for in perpetuity. So I hope we can continue to support it.
We watched the go-on rate, which many of us have watched for years and years, either stagnate or decline for just years and years. And this has been the first time that something has happened, despite lots of efforts. The first time something's happened, which has kickstarted that go-on rate to a much different level. Jan, tell us what Launch has meant in the Magic Valley and what your students in universities have found there.
We at the College of Southern Idaho, who is we've always called it our secret sauce, because they have always been there to help us with any kind of workforce issues attached to new business development. But Launch has really made a difference for that, for our college. And we are so supportive of it. You can imagine we continue to grow. I mean, I don't know how we're doing. I don't know how we do it. But as we grow our business, we grow our workforce. And it just as an example, the college is going to be putting together a program for meat cutting, right? Because we have a brand new meat processor in Jerome, True West Beef. Many people may not know this, but this this processing company went from an original. It's only 3 years. It's only been in operation for 3 years, and it's gone from an initial ramp of about 230 people to a full ramp of 530 people. That's 530 people working in a meat factory. That there was no meat factory. And so, again, the college is setting up opportunities for training for kids in that industry. The Launch program has just been a game changer, and it will continue. So we've got both fingers crossed. We're in the ears of all of our representatives, and I think we're kind of fortunate that we have the governor and lieutenant governor that we have that understand it, and certainly I'm very hopeful that this one is one that doesn't get touched, because it will really make an unfortunate difference in how we're able to grow throughout Idaho.
So, Jan, I appreciate you highlighting the governor and the lieutenant governor as understanding this, and another third party you didn't mention understands this, and that other third party, I don't see any legislators here today, that other third party needs our voice as a business community to say how important these education issues are to Idaho. We find ourselves often, and I think Mel expressed this sentiment, that sometimes we feel like we don't have an ability to control our own destinies when it comes to our political process. But on the importance of education to business, if we as a business community statewide speak with one voice, I think we can be effective at emphasizing the importance of these issues and hopefully spare some of these vital programs from what otherwise feels like an indiscriminate chopping block that affects our business community. And so I would encourage all of you, whether it's being active in organizations that promote the interests of business, your local chambers, IACI, Chamber Alliance, or groups like Idaho Business for Education, or others, that if we can speak with a united voice, all those groups have lobbyists, and if we can speak with a united voice, hopefully we can stem some of the potential damage that might happen in legislative sessions like the one we're in the midst of today. Clark, let's pivot a bit to some of the challenges facing the Treasure Valley and economic development. Many large-scale projects have wanted to come here, and our friends at Idaho Power sometimes are perceived as scrambling to keep up with the ability to provide power to those kinds of projects. So tell us about what that pinch point has looked like here locally in supporting some of these major projects.
Yeah, I don't, if you haven't seen any of our video work, we do a lot of video work now. And one of the interviews we got to have was with Lisa Grow. And if you've never heard her speak, she's this amazing lady that does great things, but CEO of Idaho Power. And one of the things she mentioned is like in the last 5 years, they've had 40 years of growth, right? They had been scheduled as for, I'm sure they look out 100 years, to the grid, but it has been just astronomical growth in this valley and in the state of Idaho. It's not just ours. And so, planning for that is crazy. The other part of that is you have hardware that's needed, for power, and one of them is transformers and substations and those kind of things. And some of those orders, if you order today, you will get that transformer in 4 years. So you can imagine this is a regulatory state, so they can't just go out and develop. They're not a developer. They serve us. And so until that demand is needed, they cannot get ahead of it. And that's just regulatory. So we have two challenges there is that we can't get ahead of it, and also that it's going to be 4 years before you get it. So this is not a Boise Metro issue. It is not a Twin Falls issue, a Sun Valley issue. It is just the bare facts is that we have a power gap right now in the United States and in this globe. And frankly, if Jan and I had 100 megawatts tomorrow, we would probably get a call within an hour saying we're coming. So we are going to be in constant catch up. The good thing I will tell you, the good news is I've worked with 2 other utilities in my lifetime, which was Utah and then in New Mexico, and they were great utilities. Our utility here, I would put it up against anybody. They are honest, upfront. They start planning with you. They never give you something they can't deliver, and they will work their butts off to get a solution. And all you have to do is look at, this valley and see what, Meta, you look at what they're doing for Micron. Micron needs a little bit more power with these 2 fabs coming on, and they've been able to stay on schedule. In fact, they're ahead of Micron on the power needs that they're going to have. And I know Chobani out and Twins probably the same, is that they deliver. They sit down with that group and they straight talk. And so we're all in the same boat. It's not a competitive advantage. It's not a competitive decline. It is just a matter of, do you have a utility that's going to get there? And we do. We really do. It's just going to take time for anything you want to do. And that's not going to slow down. I think you're going to be talking about this well after I leave this earth. I think it's going to be, 25 years. We're going to be talking about workforce housing and power.
I'm not going to be talking about that.
You're going to be in culinary. But you're going to need power. We're going to need gas, Tom. So
Dodd, you mentioned broadband earlier. Tell us about what broadband expansion and growth would mean to your work and to what's going on in North Idaho.
Yeah, this is one area where there's few things to thank COVID for, but the funding, the federal funding program that created various broadband funding programs, truly been a major benefit for us. But, I spoke about the geographic isolation of a region. I think back to the Cecil Andrus, Highway 95. For those of you who remember when the Whiteberg grade, remember going back and forth Whiteberg grade, and I was a kid back then. But Cecil Andrus talked about the Goat Trail that connected North and South Idaho, virtually not connected very well. Well, broadband is the modern day corollary, and it's something that CETA started looking at 20 years ago in our region. And we're big on collaborations. We're a partnership organization. We don't know everything by any means, so we work with people that have common interests. So we have county commissioners and various groups. But there was funding available. We've done some studies 20 years ago, touched some programs. We had some pilot programs in Latah County, for example. Then you move things ahead. The emergency manager, if we're looking at enhanced 911 at various needs to be able to respond proactively to emergency situations, safety, and that's important to everybody. And telecommunications is a big gap because the benchmark moves up, but we couldn't meet that. So that they had their group, we had economic community development. We got together and said, let's work together on this issue. And then in 2019, the governor had a task force on broadband, and our region was highlighted, and it promoted a program basically to work out fiber to middle mile, right? The wholesale system for broadband. So got a shout out there, and we work with Port of Lewiston because we have a port district in Idaho. Many of you may know that the most inland port in USA. We helped them get money from the U.S. EDA to build a fiber backbones from Moscow to Grangeville. And then Idaho, then through COVID and the funding that went through there, Idaho County got some funding. Then there's a group called IRON, ITC partnership. IRON has been around a while between networking the higher education institutions. They got a lot of funding through the state to build a broadband backbone from SCAR to Grangeville. So all these things are kind of happening. Latah County's got some funding. So we've been really fortunate. This is an area we got a lot of attention, a lot of support from the state, the Broadband Advisory Board, the Commerce Department, the staff there are really great. And so those are getting built out right now. There's some fiber to the home projects. There are other projects going on around the state. A lot of ISPs, like up north, we have Intermax. Coeur d'Alene's been involved for a while. They're doing things. Idaho is famously involved with having a publicly owned broadband network. So a broadband is really a public utility. They have water, sewer, broadband. It's remote working depends on it. Your home. So the urban areas have benefited from this for some time. We're catching up. We're really excited to see where this takes us.
Thank you. For those of us trying to get our colleagues and partners back in the office post-COVID, sometimes I think we wish our internet connections weren't as good as they are today. One obstacle all economic development companies face, maybe secondarily to the workforce issues tied to education, is housing. Hard sometimes to recruit someone to come when your housing prices are so high. And we've seen that throughout the state. Nowhere have we seen that more than Sun Valley. So, Mel, if you would give us some of your thoughts on the obstacles you face in workforce and other housing in Sun Valley, some potential solutions, we would love to hear that.
Yep, I've got thoughts, and I brought stats for you all today. It's definitely our number one bogeyman in Blaine County. Between 2018 and 2023, our median housing costs went up 74%. During that same time, pay increased 33%, income 47%. So that's a widening, troublesome gap. We have natural characteristics of topology, geography that are contributing to the housing problem there. We are constrained by the natural environment surrounding us there. So it's not a question of, in all parts of the county, you can't simply just expand. So some other little nuggets for you is that the average, I should say the median price of a house in Blaine County is $975,000. And that covers a range from Ketchum of $1.6 million to Cary of $400,000. So, the problem is that Ketchum is the kind of the economic engine, that North Valley. It has about 34% of the jobs in the county, despite only having 14% of the population. And then most shockingly, only 9% of the Ketchum workforce lives in the city of Ketchum. So now you translate that, and what does that mean? It means long commutes, frankly, and from outside the county. So Cary is a pretty healthy commute route within the county, but we have people coming from Jan's neck of the woods, places in between, Shoshone, Fairfield. I've actually anecdotally I have heard of a commuter from Mountain Home. So it's a big problem. You start talking
Good
about
thing there's no snow this year.
yeah, the drives have been way easier this winter for sure, but now you start talking about stress on an employee, coordinating childcare during these very extended days. You start talking about stress. Yeah, I've mentioned stress, but you start talking about potentially increased absenteeism. It's definitely related, Tom. You said separate issue from workforce development. I would argue that it's becoming an impediment to employers actually hiring top talent, the housing issue. So that's the gloom side. So there are some solutions. So some things I've been involved in very early on, and my predecessor was involved in as well, is we are supporting efforts for strategically placed infill, because there are pockets where, with some potential code rewrites and some rezoning, you can actually fit in duplexes and quadplexes that still respect the charm of the community and that keeps that small mountain town vibe going. So no one's talking about putting up just massive, apartment complexes or anything like that, but there's opportunities there. So my participation in local government is key. Joining developers, architects, engineers on something called the Technical Advisory Group at the City of Ketchum to start studying some of these code rewrites, which are coming for that city, is big. Our efforts to support workforce housing, ranging from what's called community housing, which supports the 60% of AMI, area median income, which is about $62,000 in Blaine County, up to percentage of about 140% of AMI. So now you're starting to at least capture the large middle group there as well. And so letters of support, also educating the community, because sometimes there's trade-offs, and what's the most important use of this parcel of land right now? Is it continued parking, or can we put 60 units in? And trade-offs are real, and they require an informed public. So that's part of my role as well, is explaining, what do we want here? What's the best use? A reminder of what our number one problem is. So sorry, that was a bit long-winded, but yeah.
And there are groups that are working on private-public partnerships in different similar areas of the state. For instance, the hospital in McCall has made efforts to help build employee housing. There are other tax credits that have sometimes been available to assist with this effort, and so finding solutions is a big issue. But hopefully, we can get some legislative support for both some of the rezoning things that they're being discussed in this session, and some workforce housing type of initiatives that I think are going to be before the legislature this session. Jan, specific to your area, foreign direct investment is been something that you've utilized. Tell us what that is and how you've used that to the advantage of your community and your economic development efforts.
Well, we have at the state, actually, there's the U.S. Department of Commerce actually put together an event called Select USA. And it's an interesting concept. All 50 states and territories are the exhibitors, and they vet and bring in companies from all over the globe that want to do business in the U.S., and they can talk to all 50 states at one time. So it's been a really successful program. It was started back in the Obama days, but it's been very successful. Of course, it went through a little hiccup over COVID. They did it virtual, and then it came back, and we were like, okay, should we continue to be a part of this process or not? Just coming out of COVID, so we actually walked the show. We didn't exhibit. We were the only state that did not exhibit at that show that year, but we've been going for many years, so people thought we were there. Where's your booth? Well, the next year we decided we need to be there. We're not going to be the only state that doesn't show up for this event. Unfortunately, the state did not want to continue its full support of that show conference, so we stepped up. Southern Idaho stepped up. They do participate. The state does participate with us, but we stepped up, and we are representing the state for the last, now I think this is our 4th year. But it's a very interesting opportunity. You never know who's going to walk through that booth and what the threat could be. 3 or 4 years ago, the French version of the U.S. Department of Commerce stepped into our booth and said, hey, we're considering bringing a group of 10 companies over for a visit and looking at 3 possible cities, Chicago, Minneapolis, and Twin Falls, Idaho. And so we were like, I'm telling you, if you bring them to Twin Falls, Idaho, I'm just saying that's going to be their favorite spot on the tour. So we were really pushing, telling them we got picked. So we got to be one of the 3 cities, Chicago, Minneapolis, and Twin Falls, Idaho. And it was a great experience. They had a great experience. They did say that was their most interesting visit while they were here. They spent the day at Chobani. What we found out later, there were a couple of companies that actually had been supporting Chobani since the get-go, a French company called Tech Marys that do all the back-end packaging. So we started to develop those relationships, and then we kept pulling that string. If we did well there, the business France said, guess what? We'll have you in Paris, and you can present to 100 French companies, but you have to bring along a company here that is from France that is doing business in the U.S. So we took Lactalis. It was a big hit. Everybody knows Lactalis over there. And that kind of started, and then we started, but we had a strategy. And so to your point, you're going to love this. So our strategy was not just to go over and try to find companies that want to do business in the U.S. Put a plant here. We had a much broader strategy, one of which was because the College Southern Idaho has a culinary school program, we wanted to be connected with Fernandi, which is the oldest culinary school in France. And we wanted our kids to have an opportunity to make that connection, to go there and their kids to come here. So we wanted that introduction. And we did make that introduction, and that is going to happen. So our kids, if you can believe this, how cool is that, are going to get an opportunity to actually go to the culinary school in France and have that opportunity. We also brought the University of Idaho with us because they're our ag, and we introduced those to the University of Burgundy, their ag university. And they are in the process right now of doing a memorandum of understanding to exchange faculty and students. So you can see that we were really taking a much broader personal approach. But the really fantastic outcome so far is we have a company in Burley. It's called Redox Nutrients. They have been trying to get into the European market for many years. But to get their product in, it has to be tested specifically in Europe, and to do that, you have to be attached to a co-op. Okay, so I know that's a shaggy dog story, but it's so cool. So that was a year ago. We took them with us to a trade conference in Burgundy, and they were introduced to the co-ops, 3 co-ops. They made plans, and this year, so a year later, for the first time, their product is going to be planted in France, which opens up the entire European market for the company of Redog. Is that the coolest thing ever? I mean, really. So we're looking at things from a more holistic perspective, not just pulling in, looking for companies. And we have a consultant that's just has his tap shoes on, he's ready to go. And so we've taken the lieutenant governor's gone over with me twice. Kelly Anthon, who is, of course, the pro tem, has gone over. So I have some, folks that can open some doors while we go over there that have been a great job for ambassadors. So that is something that we've just begun. So we started pulling that thread, and it has already, in the last couple of years, produced that. So that's been added to what we're doing from a domestic perspective. And we think it's really important. So we've kind of been leading the state in FDI. There's a trade, which is completely different, but that's what we've been doing for the last 30 plus years, really focused on trade. It's not the same thing. And so this is a kind of a brand new strategy for us as well as the state to really focus on foreign direct investment, bring companies here, for our companies to have opportunities there, but even more broadly for our children to have opportunities at culinary.
Keeps coming up.
And sorry.
So it keeps coming up.
There's a theme here.
And to connect our universities. So in a very short period of time, we pulled that thread, and just who knows where it's going to go. But I'm excited to have shared that with you, and we're very excited, not only as a region, but with the state, to continue to develop that area of opportunity.
Thank you. That's great. One of my real treasured memories of being the BVAP board chair was Clark had me moderate a panel of the up-and-coming and most established restaurateurs in Boise. And it was really, not just Boise, but the whole Treasure Valley. And it was a delight to talk to these entrepreneurial culinary experts about the great things they've done with their restaurants. So I want to conclude with a question for all of you. And it's focused on the idea that none of you are economic development focused on one single entity. It's not Twin Falls, it's not Boise, it's not Ketchum, it's not Moscow or Lewiston. It's a regional effort. How do you balance the competing interests of the parties that are within your region as economic development efforts progress? Clark has Caldwell, Nampa, Meridian, Eagle, the whole group of Treasure Valley communities. And sometimes, they all have their own economic development people. And sometimes there's some competitiveness when projects come along. I think in the Magic Valley, there's been really a lot of respect for the ability to coordinate between those communities. So let's start with you, Dodd. How do you balance, and I know it's not economic development as much for you, but how do you balance all the different public entities that you work with and help keep them all on the same page?
Yeah. So, and I think we're all going to agree that economic development's a team sport, right? There's no I in team, right? Yeah. But it's really true, because that's how we're successful. In our region, we don't have a lot of economic development players. So we have Valley Vision based in Lewiston, which is which is similar to the Boise organization. So they're focused mainly on recruitment, and they pretty much kind of work on their own. We have an the ED Pro program that supports Mel, for example, in Orofino, and we communicate with her. And she's also a small business development center counselor. So she's a great resource for us because we run a small business finance program. So if she's counseling a small business in Orofino or Clearwater County, she gets it in the door to us. So, and she does a lot of grant work, a lot of specific stuff in areas that I don't have the bandwidth or some of the expertise that she could focus on. So that works really well. Moscow is doing pretty well on its own. Again, I wish there was more I could do to do more direct economic development services. Lately, I'm looking at things like new market tax credits, different programs where we can be a conduit. So if we can't help, our motto is find someone who can. And we're a small organization right now. We have 4 people, and I had the ability to do more stuff and just the resources and time because we have a big geography. So I think our geography is the challenge, and just sometimes people don't know what they need until they need it. And so we do some marketing and outreach, and it's often all about timing. Um, but for example, the conference leads that come up, but we'll see those. And honestly, I could write close to them off. I think Clark made a comment about how they could bring a lot of business there if they had the energy resource, for example. So really focus more on existing businesses and ability to expand. So I'd like to do more. We have the ability to do more. I think through my career, I've seen the benefits are working together, not competing, especially between governments. It's a reach, even Lewiston, Clarkston, a win. And for us, if something a business is in Pullman or Moscow in many ways, or Clarkston, it's a benefit for Idaho because people live here, they work there, they spend money over here, vice versa. So can't be territorial provincial. You got to look collaboratively in a big picture.
Great, thank you. Mel, tell us about Wood River Valley.
Yeah, so I've alluded to a couple of these things earlier, but I mean, for example, in the South Valley, Cary needs a grocery store. Okay, so that's we're talking like some basic stuff. Main Street development in Cary and Bellevue are important, front of mind. I'm trying to steer resources their way. Things like wastewater treatment, also a big deal in the South Valley. Then you go up north, to talk about how different the area is. I mentioned the housing before, but also, there's still we're not Twin Falls, we're not Boise. So the type of company that we're looking to come in is more of a startup. Could be light outdoor rec, could be ruggedized truck equipment. A company called Decked recently came to town. We have a women's outdoor apparel company called Wild Rye came. Some light manufacturing we could probably handle, but we're not going after, say, multinationals. I think what kind of ties it all together, one thing that we do, and just to echo Dodd's point, we're a 1.25 person shop, so we're not even a 4-person shop. So it does become a matter of priorities. But I think our hosting of events is pretty crucial. So we've got one coming. Well, we've got one in March that's going to deal with cybersecurity. It involves Boise State College of Innovation and Design as well. So shout out to that team. They're awesome. We're also going to hit the local Wood River High School the following morning and do a little thing. But if you skip to the next event that we're in the planning stages for in May, we're doing something in coordination with the local Valley Chamber. I think they're going to bring in a National Chamber of Commerce person, and then some folks down in Jan's neck of the woods, Frontier Community Resources, as well as the Small Business Development Corporation. We're going to put on a workshop and it might be bilingual because I keep going, but we have a pretty strong Latino contingent in our county. But it's just going to be, tools and resources, access to capital, financing mechanisms, et cetera. And that transcends the entire county. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm excited about and looking forward to.
You have the 2027 ski race?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, there are some things that transcend economic development, but definitely an impact. So we hosted, the area hosted the Alpine World Cup in March of 25, which was amazing. My predecessor did an economic impact analysis and came up with a figure of $16 million of impact to the community and the state of Idaho from that event. And they recently announced they're coming back in 27. So looking forward to that. There's, like everything, there's challenges and opportunities. The housing aspect of those teams, officials, etc., will be tough, but we'll get through it. We have longer warning this time for the event. On the positive side, it opens up the door for, I was speaking with the CEO of Sun Valley Company, and he said he really wants to pull in the local business community more. So I believe there's chances for help with some of the infrastructure set up around the race, as well as Idaho sponsorship, where we don't compete with the official FIS sponsors. There are some of those. FIS is the International Ski Federation. It's a French acronym, so it's reverse. But there's opportunities there, and I think also for just employees to contribute to the volunteer ranks. So we're super excited for that to come back in 27. If it's as successful or more so than the previous one, there's the chance that it could come back for the next 3 odd year cycles. So this could be around for a while. It's awesome for the state.
Excellent. You may be at 1.25 FTE, but I think when you add the cachet of being in Sun Valley, you've got another full,
Another
quarter full 1.0 FTE. Clark, tell us about coordinating the different communities that are members of BVAP.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I have found that if I'm keeping secrets from my partner, it doesn't go well. And I think our business traditionally was very like, I have this thing in a dark cave and I'm not going to tell anybody about it until the press release. And what that caused amongst the communities I've worked with, running a state organization, then this regional organization, is that causes distrust. And so we have actually a working group that gets together every other week on Zoom, which has made it a lot easier. And we will tell our communities exactly what we're working on, what that project looks like, where they sit in it, so that there is no like, how come I didn't get to see this? So that has shifted everything in this valley. It has made them trust us more and the process more, and it keeps us more accountable, quite frankly. And the other thing that we're really lucky with at BVAP is 90% of our funds come from private sector. I have about 130 members that support Boise Valley Economic Partnership. And when I first got here, Mountain Home wanted to join BVAP. And I said, well, that's great and everything, but I need to take this to my board because, you're not really part of the Boise Metro, right? And I took that to my board and they're like, of course we want Mountain Home. That is part of this community. Because we're private sector, most of my members also have business in Twin Falls and also have business in Sun Valley and also have business all across the state. So it's made our job so much easier. So if we get a prospect in and they say, hey, I called you because I know you. This is probably not going to end up in the Boise Metro. Can you help us in Pocatello? Can you help us in Twin Falls? We get on the phone and we're very generous with our partners. I can tell you Jan does the same thing. Jan, said, you guys are missing out on Select USA. You should join us, and invited us into that process. She's invited us to, through an effort that Commerce is doing, that we join her and, join them in France. We're also going, BVAP is I'm going to Japan in April to recruit vendors and suppliers of Micron and that type of thing. But the state is 1.8 million people. We're not even a mid-sized city to some, and most of our competitors, which you can imagine is Salt Lake, Reno, Phoenix, we're the tiny one. So if we're not working well together in this so-called state slash mid-sized city of a state, something's gone terribly wrong. And so, we were talking, you're going over to see Beth right after this, who works in our office. We have to work together. And I think that's something that's really been delightful being in this industry for a while, is going from everything being a secret to generosity. So.
Can you explore the culinary training opportunities in Japan? That actually interests me more than France.
There. Well, you can come with us, Tom. That would be.
Jan, tell us about your coordination efforts. You guys are kind of held up as with some of the success in the big projects as a community that's done it right, with a bunch of different cities and partners over a pretty good chunk of mileage between Jerome and Bertie Rupert. So tell us about that.
Well, you're absolutely right. And you're right too. I mean, Team Southern Idaho, you can't, we're two, and not 1.25, but we're two people. You can't do what we've been able to accomplish, not only in Southern Idaho, but across the state, if you're just trying to be, everything's about you. We team with Region 4, now Frontier. We team with the college. We are actually our money is coming from a three-legged stool. So we have the College of Southern Idaho is about a third. So that's one of our partners. Business Plus, we're very unique. It's a business organization that actually created the Southern Idaho, or the Economic Development Organization. It raises all the private sector money and writes us a check once a year. And then we have the cities and the counties. And they've been very stable over the years. But everybody understands that the client picks, the company picks the best spot for themselves. It's not your choice, it's their choice. And so we've been able to work together very, very well. And I have to tell you, I don't know how many of you know our city managers or city administrators in the Southern Idaho areas, but they're pretty strong and pretty strong personalities. And so that was the kindest way I could say that. Very strong personality. And so it's, but we've been working together for many years, but we do work together as a team. And that's really, I think, what has been a part of our success, is that we're not trying to fight one another. The companies feel it when they're there, exploring opportunities in our region. If it doesn't work in our region, we make sure that we connect with other regions. It's just too small. We are representing Southern Idaho, but really you've got to get past Idaho first before you can even get into the region of our state. So we very much promote the state. That's why when we go on these international tours, we bring, the lieutenant governor or pro tem or someone with us that represents the state, and then we can sell what makes sense for our region, as well as other opportunities throughout the state. We're just too small not to work together as a team. And we really have, over all the years that we work together, I mean, both the Boise Valley and Southern Idaho, if it makes sense for one or the other, we're gonna help that region out or that community out. So I think that's really what makes us successful as a state as well.
That's great. I'm going to leave with one parting thought, is that these four, and Dodd, you didn't mention how many FTEs you have, but I'm guessing you have 4 or less in your group. Tell me how many FTEs your organization would have.
Oh, I currently have, we have 4, and I'm trying to be those specialists if anyone's looking.
So basically, we've got for economic development, less so for Dodd, but for others that are doing economic development in a wide swath of our state for about 11 or 12 FTEs, accomplishing all of that work and all of that economic success on very lean structures, ones that are supported by government and business and others. But just think about that, the efforts that have gone in and the successes they've had with our, I've always marveled at BVAP. We have 4 FTEs, and the stuff they do and accomplish with those 4 people is pretty amazing on that lean of an operation. I think that's statewide, and I think this group is absolutely representative of that. Dodd, Mel, Clark, Jan, you've been great. Thank you so much. We've enjoyed having you as our panelists. We've learned a lot. Can someone that knows more than I do tell me if we have time left for questions?
We do have time for questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
What time do the questions end? 10 o'clock?
We can give it, well, I have closing remarks. We have probably 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we can get to some questions.
We would open it up to questions, anyone who might want to ask a question of any of the panelists.
And I'll come around with the mic. This has been really good stuff, exciting. The energy has definitely continued in the room. And although you're all from different communities and you're very diverse, you all have one thing in common, and that's community problem solving. So kudos to all of you. Questions? All right. And I want to point out that we have a new sponsor this year for our breakfast series throughout the year, and that is St. Luke's Health Plan. And I'm so sorry I didn't mention them in my opening remarks, but we appreciate your support. Brian?
I was going to step away, but then when I saw who the first question was, I decided I need to stay here.
What is the best counter argument that you have to people in the legislature that oppose lunch?
No, I think I've already stated it. You are facing what could be either your biggest opportunity or crisis in the state of Idaho, and that being, are you going to step up and have a skilled labor force? And that goes from, the program is so well put to where, a kid graduating from high school wants to be a welder can get a training program out of that, or a kid who wants to go get his doctorate's degree in computer science or AI. They're all available through that. If we don't do that, we're gonna get busy. I call it the Shawshank of economic development. You're either busy growing or busy dying. And you want to see that. You don't want to see that side.
And I would add to that an $8,000 investment per student is pretty modest for what those students are getting out of it. Some of them are completing their entire education post-secondary and ending up with an in-demand job and a trade that is going to benefit them and their employer for an investment of $8,000 per student.
And I'd also say this is not like a drunken monkey with a checkbook kind of a program. It is, when I was in New Mexico, if you graduated with a 2.5, they would pay for your 4-year college at any university or community college in New Mexico. So there are competitors out there, and if you want to be competitive, whether you like it or not, you better continue to step up your community. And don't you want your kids to stay here?
We have the jobs for them to stay.
So, Tom, it just seems like it's a really good opportunity to ask the question. We do have a recommendation out of JFAC right now to reduce Idaho launch by $10 million next year. Wendy Seacrest told us 2 days ago in JFAC that will impact kids. They have enough kids who have registered. They will be withholding money. So I guess my question is, with a group of people that represent business, what is it that we can do, should do right now in order to communicate? This is the opportunity. This is the line. I agree with Clark. We've got really good data right now. And it is telling us that our go-on rate is going up, that students are making choices that benefit our businesses. They're not any jobs. These are jobs that are open right now. So I guess my question with all of these wonderful people in here is a time to be together to have a conversation with our legislators now while that piece of legislation is moving through the floor.
Yeah, I can start and just say that I'm lucky enough to already have a meeting set up tomorrow morning with my District 26 legislators. So I for one, and maybe many of you will do the same. It's a pretty easy, thing to relay to them. So, just making sure they're aware of what's at stake. I'll do my best, do my part representing the businesses from Blaine County, especially because of how much we rely on, the vocational programs, et cetera. So this is the time, you're right. So for me, it's tomorrow morning with 3 individuals, 2 in the House, 1 in the Senate, just making sure they're aware. I think they are, but it's good. It's good to hear this from many different angles and sides. So.
Yeah, there's no question from our region that several of our legislators are absolutely just going to hold on to launch till their last breath, including some, we're very fortunate in our region to have, the pro tem as well as the lieutenant governor. And they all know, whatever that is they can do. And then, of course, our legislators. We have some that we're never going to make, we're never going to get them to turn. But we have a really good, solid base of folks that want to, really want this program to continue and don't touch the education dollars. And I spoke with all of them yesterday, and they're very much solidly behind not touching launch and really not touching education.
That's an excellent question. I've always felt like the business community all is perfectly aligned on this and similar issues, but I'm not sure we always speak with as magnified of a voice as we need to. Meaning there's lots of different business voices at the legislature. It seems like a congregation or a combination of those voices on some issues that there's unanimity on would be effective. We've got lots of different groups that are saying the same thing, but I think sometimes the message can be diffused by different by not all speaking with one single voice. That's just something that I've thought about for a while.
Any additional questions? With the interest on these topics, the April 9th breakfast series happens to be Business View on Legislation, so please join us for that. Mark's working on panelists as we speak. Another question right here.
This is related to our discussion about Idaho Power and how they show up to support business expansion. I've heard the stories about regular people saying, "Hey, the Meta data center is going to make my residential power rates go up, and the Micron fab construction's going to hurt me as a residential power payer." How do you respond to that to basically help people understand that these business investments, corporate investments are good for the overall economy, and maybe your rate goes up a little bit, or maybe it seems like it goes up a lot to you, but it's good for us all. I don't have an answer for that, and I'm just wondering how you would respond to that kind of an issue that is getting voiced more and more as we see these projects continue.
I think it's really important to understand that if a facility such as a Meta or a Micron comes in, or a Tractor Supply company, they pay for their infrastructure. And the regulatory does keep your rates. They regulate those rates. And so when Idaho Power is asking you for a rate increase, it's because the consumer side of their business demands it, that they can't do what they're doing without it. But the corporate side has to pay for, if I move in here, I'm paying for all that stuff. I have to pay for every wire going into that building and everything outside of that building that comes off that power line. So really, they're kind of separate from one another. But it is right. You're going to hear that from consumers are going to say, "Oh, that you're just that's speak." But that is the answer is and I got to tell you, corporations don't like to show up and hear that they're going to pay for every piece of their infrastructure, but that's how it goes. Utah's very similar. New Mexico was very similar. So it's not a surprise, but in some areas, they don't have to pay for that when it comes in.
Thank you for that. That's helpful
Yeah.
understanding because you hear a lot to the contrary, and it's helpful to be able to.
Yeah.
We're also seeing movements towards the data centers bringing their own power sources. They're going to build their own electrical generation on site. They might use geothermal. They might use small nuclear at some point someday, but that's kind of how protective Idaho Power's been of those resources.
And also, I would also tell them, why don't you call your friend in California, see what they're paying for power? I mean, it's not advertised because they can't, but Idaho Power has way lower prices than almost anybody in the country for consumers.
I think that's it. Tom, thank you so much for moderating this panel today. And thank you to the panelists. Let's give all of them a round of applause. Thank you so much. I just have a few closing remarks. Thank you, Tom. So the report for the breakfast series today and the recording will be available on February 27th. So be watching for that on our website. And thank you again to our breakfast series presenting sponsor, Holly Troxel, and our supporting sponsors, Bank of America, St. Luke's Health Plan, and the Grove Hotel. And a special thank you to Mike and the Better Business Bureau for being here. Let's give them all a round of applause. On March 12th, we will recognize this year's Empowering Women companies at an awards luncheon. We invite you to join us for that. If you'd like more information about the 2026 Breakfast Series and other Idaho Business Review upcoming events, please visit our website at idahobusinessreview.com. That is all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was a really interesting conversation. Thank you for all the good work that you do in your communities. We do appreciate it. Make it a great day. Thank you.